Okay, in this video we're going to look at the cosine rule. The cosine rule is used to solve particular problems for non-right angled triangles which can't be solved using the sine rule. Okay, for the sine rule we were able to solve problems where we had two sides. For example, we had side C and side B, and we had an angle that was opposite one of those sides, which would have to be angle B or angle C if we've got side C and side B. If we've got three of those things, we can find all the solutions using the sine rule. The other situation the sine rule would help us in is if we had two angles like A and C, and then we had some other side such as C. Then we can use the sine rule to solve for the rest of the triangle. And it wouldn't matter if we had two angles, it wouldn't matter which of the sides we had, we'd be able to solve it. Partly because if we've got two angles, then we should automatically know the third one. If we know A and C, then we can find B, because B will equal 180 degrees, which is the sum of all the angles in a triangle, minus A plus C. We can always find the third one. So those are the two situations for the sine rule. But the situations that it won't work for, the sine rule won't work if we know two sides. So I'll just remove all those. Okay, if we know two sides such as C and B, but we've got the angle that's in between those two sides, which we call the included angle, the sine rule won't work in that situation. It won't be able to solve it for us. Also, if we had all three sides, so we've got three pieces of information, all three sides, we wouldn't be able to use the sine rule there either. But in those two situations, we can use the cosine rule. So let's look at the cosine rule now. Okay, the cosine rule comes in three different versions or three different flavors. The first version is for when you're going to try and find side A. So this is when we've got side B, we've got side C, and we've got angle A. In other words, we've got two sides and the angle in between them. Those are the bits of info we've got here. And we want to find out this other side over here, A. Well, this is the version of the cosine rule that we're going to use. So you'd put in the B and the C, you'd put in the angle for A, and put that all into a calculator, and it's going to give you some number. That's going to be A squared. And then you would just, at the end, do the square root of both sides. And you would end up with, because that would cancel out and just give you A, that would give you the length of the side A. Okay, but if we're going to find side C or side B, then it's going to change the rule around a little bit. Let's look at those two other versions, two other flavors. Okay, so here's the other two versions of the cosine rule that are going to allow us to solve other unknown sides like B and C. In fact, you'll notice that in each case, the three different versions of the rule, they all look very, very similar. They all have exactly the same form. All that changes is which sides and angles are involved. Okay, so to find find side A, we need to know side B, side C, and angle A. To find side B, we need the other two sides and the angle that sort of corresponds to side B, the angle opposite side B. And then for side C, the same thing again. We need the other two sides, A and B, and we need the angle C, which is opposite side C. So once you've got those values, you just plug them into the equation and it gives you the answer. Okay, if that seems a bit confusing, don't worry, because once you see a worked example, you'll see it's very straightforward. Okay, now that's going to be great if we've got two sides and the included angle, the angle in between those two sides. But the other situation the sine rule wouldn't work for was when we had three sides given and we want to find some other part of the triangle, like one of these angles. Okay, this version of the sine rule, we need to, these versions of the cosine rule need to be modified in order to be useful for finding the angles. Okay, let's look at the modified versions that are good for finding the angles. Okay, so here are the three modified versions of the cosine rule that are going to be used for finding the angle A, B, or C. So it might look like a lot of stuff, but remember, you don't have to remember all of this. All you've got to know is how to use the rules, because the laws will be given to you, these equations will be given to you. All you've got to know is which of these three equations am I going to use, plug in the values, and then it'll spit out the answer for you. So in this case, if we're trying to find, say, angle A, then we're going to need to know the other three sides of the triangle. We'd plug those into this equation, and it's going to give us cos A. And then to get rid of that cos bit, so that we've just got the angle A, we'd do inverse cos of both sides. Inverse cos of both sides. That'll get rid of the cos from here, and inverse cos of this side, or cos to the -1 of this side, will give us the angle A. Alright, let's do some examples and we'll see how this is going to work. Okay, let's look at this question here, where we're given these two sides and this angle here, and we need to find side C. Okay, if we want to find side C, first step is draw a diagram of this situation. Okay, so let's make this angle A, angle B, angle C, and let's make this side A, side C, side B. Let's label it according to the information we've been given. So this is 3.4, this is 7.8, and angle C, this angle here, is 80 degrees. Okay, now notice we've got two sides and we've got an angle in between those two sides. That means this is going to be a cosine rule situation, no surprise. Okay, so to find side C, this side over here, we've got to decide which of these equations is going to do that for us. These three equations, they're for finding unknown angles, not for unknown sides, so we're definitely not going to use those. And all we have to do is look at these three equations. Obviously this is the one that's for finding C, because it's got C squared as the focus of it. So that's the equation we need to write out now. Let's write out that equation. C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cos of C. Alright, now I've just got to plug in my values. So A is C squared equals 3.4 squared. A is 3.4. B is 7.8 squared. And then minus 2 times 3.4 times 7.8 times cos, and C is 80 degrees, so I put 80 degrees in there. Alright. Okay, now I've entered this equation, these numbers into the calculator. We've got 3.4 squared plus 7.8 squared minus 2 times 3.4 times 7.8 times cos of 80 degrees. When we execute that, we get this number here. Okay, so 63 point, oops, didn't mean to put that point there, 63.19 if we're rounding off. And now this is C squared, so we've got to take the square root of both sides to get C. So let's do the square root of our answer. Close the brackets, and we get 7.95. C equals 7.95. So there we have it. Okay, and now that we've got this side here, C, we've now got all three sides and this angle here. Now we'd have the choice. If we wanted to, we could use the cosine rule to solve for angle A and angle B now. Because we've got all three sides, we can use any one of these three equations here to solve for the other two angles, or you could also use the sine rule, because now you've satisfied the conditions having 3 of the 4 pieces you need to use the sine rule. So how to solve the rest of the triangle would be up to you from here. Alright, let's do a different kind of a problem with the cosine rule. Okay, in this question we've got 3 sides given to us, and we've got to find the angles for the rest of the triangle. So let's draw our diagram. Let's call this angle A, angle B, angle C, and side C, side B, and side A. Now we're given all 3 sides this time, so it's a little bit different to the last one. We've got side B is 207, side A is 356, and side C is 296. Okay, now if we're going to find the angles, we're not going to need these equations this time, because these are for finding sides. Okay, we're going to be using one of these three equations. Which equation are we going to use? Well, we need to find all the angles, so it doesn't really matter which equation we use first. We're going to need to use all of them at some point. So let's start with the first one. Let's find angle A. So let's write out the equation. Angle A, cos A equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared divided by 2bc. Let's put in our values. So cos A equals b squared. B is 207 squared. C is 296 squared. And A is 356 squared. And that's divided by 2 times B is 296 times C is 356. Okay, let's put that into a calculator. Alright, when we put all of these numbers here into the calculator, what we get is this number here, 0.01721 blah blah blah. Okay, let's keep that on top. Now, so we found out what this this fraction cancels down to. It becomes this number here, but we're not quite finished with finding the angle yet, because we've got to get rid of this cos here. To get rid of that cos, we've got to do inverse cos of both sides. Okay, so inverse cos on this side cancels out the cos, so we've just got A, and we've got to do inverse cos of all of that, which means inverse cos to this number here. So let's go to our trig functions, inverse cos, and we'll put in the answer from the previous line, and we get that 89 degrees. Let's turn that into 2 DMS. Let's turn that into degrees, minutes, seconds. Okay, and there we go. It's 89 degrees and 1 minute if we round. So A equals 89 degrees and 1 minute. So we've found angle A. Now, if that's how we found angle A, which was one of three angles that we don't know, to find angle B, we would just go through the same process for this equation here. Just go through the same process. Plug the values in, you'll get cos B, then do inverse cos, and you'll get the angle B. Now, you wouldn't have to do that for the third angle. Once you've done that for A and B, you've used the cosine rule to find A and B, you don't need to use it again to find C, because if you've got two angles, then you can find the third. It's going to be 180 minus A plus B. That will equal angle C. So if you're finding three angles, given you start with three sides, you find the three angles, you only need to find two sides, and then the third angle, sorry, you only need to find the two angles, and the third angle you can find using that fact about the internal angles of a triangle. Okay, so hopefully that's enough to get you going on the cosine rule. You'll be okay with that. We'll just put a summary of all the key points on, and then you can copy that down, and that's all you need. Okay, so here we have a summary of the data. We've got the three different versions of the cosine rule here for finding unknown sides. We've got the three modified versions here for finding unknown angles. And just remember, at the end of using any of these three rules, you've got to take the square root of both sides to get rid of that squared there. And at the end of using any of these rules, you've got to take the inverse cos of both sides to get rid of those cos next to the angle. And of course, we use the cosine rule when you're given three sides, or when you're given two sides and the included angle, which is what we call the angle that's in between two sides. So that's all you need to know about the cosine rule. Okay, thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it.